So whether you're a tennis coach, whether you're a tennis player, or perhaps even if you're a tennis parent, at some point you'll have seen or been involved in movement drills on a tennis court. And of course, movement is really important. We know that. But what I want to share with you are my 5 top tips for how you can get more out of movement drills that you do for yourself as a player, or perhaps that you might be working on with your players if you're a tennis coach. So tip number 1 is to actually watch what happens on a tennis court in a tennis match. So watch a tennis match on YouTube or on a video or perhaps even live, and just take time to watch the player's feet, and you'll see the different types of movements, you'll see the different directions of movements, and you'll also see the level of intensity of the movement. So the first thing is, if you want to make your movement drills relevant to tennis and what happens in a match, watch what players do and then try and get some of that into your movement drills. Number 2 is to think about distance. Now, if you think about it logically, the longest distance you're going to move on a tennis court is from one corner by the baseline, perhaps, to the opposite corner over by the net post, perhaps if you're chasing a drop shot. So we don't really ever have to move very long distances on the tennis court. Most shots are going to be within a couple of steps of the middle of the court if we're at the baseline. Of course, we also have to move forwards or backwards. But most of the distances involved in a rally are actually quite short. So don't worry about making your players run long distances or move long distances. Lots and lots of short distances with changes of direction is far more relevant to what happens in the tennis match. Number 3 is to use a ball. Now, that might seem very simple, and even if you're not actually going to hit the ball in your movement drill, using a ball changes things and it brings more different dimensions into it. So first of all, by using a ball, it challenges the player's receiving skills. That's the first thing. Second thing, using a ball also then means that you can start to look at the player's contact point. So if you want the player to catch the ball as part of the movement drill, then have a think about if you want them to catch the ball as it's falling, perhaps if you want them to contact or catch the ball at the top, or if perhaps you want them to move forwards and intercept the ball on the rise. It also allows you to think about whether you want the players to be catching the ball out to the side, okay, or a little bit further in front. Presumably, you're not going to want your players catching the ball in here. So using a ball also brings in other elements which are important around the movement drill as well. Number 4 is very simple, but use a racket in some of your movement drills. It changes the way that the players move. Of course, it also brings in other dimensions, because it means that in your movement drills, the players could perhaps catch a ball on the strings, or of course they could hit the ball back. But using a racket in your movement drills, having the racket in the dominant hand, changes the way that the players move, and again makes it feel a little bit more tennis related. And finally, top tip number 5 is remember recovery. So often I see movement drills where the players are required to move in one direction, but then they stop and they don't move back. So think about the changes of direction that I mentioned earlier in this short video. Get the players to move in one direction and then either to recover or perhaps even to reposition if you want them to take up a new position in a different part of the court. But make sure that you cover movement to the ball and that you move away from the ball or recovering back after you've contacted the ball to make your movement drills really specific to what happens on the tennis court.